We got another Purpose Served podcast episode for you guys. I'm here with a very, very, very special person. She's done so many great things. She's a lieutenant in the state police.
Yes,
She runs Goldmind Consultant.
I do.
And also, this is my mother, Stacey Lloyd.
Hey, everybody. What's up? Oh, my goodness, yes.
Well, it's nice to finally have you on the show. We've been talking about this for God knows how long.
Yes.
Even
I just been trying to partner with you forever. So this is just like the beginning of a true partnership. So
how often did we talk about, like, just talking, just recording the conversations that we have?
man, well, I started Goldmind about 6 years ago. So I've been trying to get you to have conversations for about probably 2 years, 3 years, maybe. I'll say two. No, 3 years. It was 3 years.
3?
Yeah, 3 years.
For real?
Yeah.
For everybody out there that's listening to you right now, tell them what Goldmind Consultants actually is.
So Goldmind Consultants is similar to Daryl's mission, and it's to assist people with understanding not what they think, but how they think in order for them to reach their ultimate goals and live life on purpose, as opposed to thinking that there's nothing you can do. It's really about going inside your mind and figuring out what you want to do and making it happen. So it's about living on purpose.
What made you start it?
The reason why I started it is, I started out with, I felt like I was like a real compulsive person, and I wanted to know, why do I do the things that I don't want to do, and I'm not really working hard and using that energy to do those things that I want to do. And I started studying the brain and neuroscience, and then I began to realize that the basis of our success and failure has a lot to do with how we think. And then once I discovered like the power of thought and the power of setting goals and changing your thoughts, I said, and I put it into practice, I started Goldmind Consultant. So once I saw how it works, I said, you know what, I want to give this to people. I want people to understand that it's all about your thoughts. Everything boils down to how you think.
Nah, like we have so many like conversations about that, just throughout the years on, like, you know, how the mind works and everything. But for everybody that's listening right now, this was not always the case. Like, you know what I mean? We had it like here and there, but as of late, it's just been becoming more and more like a prevalent and profound thing with these conversations. Like, we have a very, very humble upbringing, especially my mom. You know what I mean? And just tell the people a little bit about, you know, North and growing up in North.
I mean, I don't really care what anybody say. Newark would always have a place in my heart.
Put the mic closer.
Oh, okay. Newark would always have a place in my heart. I felt like in Newark we had a sense of community, and we really didn't realize what was going on around us because we just played together, we had fun together. But then when you begin to, I guess, television exposes you to a different part of the world, and it's like people seem to be living like real peaceful lives and 2-parent households and food and vacation and jobs and that stuff. And I'm like, man. And so as I began to see the world outside based on what I saw on television, I was like, oh my goodness. Then you begin to really look outside and see that you're not living in the most prosperous environment. But, you know, I grew up in a very volatile household, and my mother, being as strong as she is, unfortunately found herself in a domestic violence situation. And as a result of that, it just kind of broke her down. Again, it messes with your mind. It messes with your self-esteem. And so as a result of that, at a young age, you know, I've been on my own since I was 15 years old. And I like to tell people it has nothing really to do with what my mother did to me. It just had a lot to do with her adversities that she was facing. And so, but as a result of that happening to me, I became a dreamer. And I kept saying, when I get older, I'm going to come back and I'm going to do this in the community. When I grow up, I'm going to have a house. I'm going to travel the world. I'm going to do this for my kids. And just by thinking that so early and not thinking that, I never felt like life was about gloom and doom. I started creating possibilities. Another thing that gave me a vision was just observing what was happening in our community. Crack hit Newark in the 80s. And then it's similar to what people are facing right now with the opioid epidemic. And you just saw people body structures and facial structures just change, and everybody began to look like zombies. And I'm like, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna clean up the neighborhood. I'm gonna help the children, and I never understood the power of thought during that time, right? I never desired to be anything negative. I wanted to come back like as a superhero, or similar to what people who left slavery. They was willing to lay their lives down to come back to help people be free and learn how to read, and I'm like, I'm gonna be that person. And looking around, I'm like, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna help this community. But and not to be all over the place, that was the foundation of my thought process, to be a helper, to be a servant, and I never ever realized that. So even though I went through a situation where I was taking care of myself at 15 and on, I still kept saying, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And I knew I was going to graduate high school, and I made sure I graduated high school. And while I was in high school, I'm like, I need to learn everything. So I was getting A's and B's because I said, I need to learn everything. In order for me to apply it, I need to know it. So just being that positive and just being kind of a visionary and optimistic about life and focused and determined, that really began to program the way I operated for the rest of my life.
But when you first start thinking like that, mm-hmm. it's one of those things where it had to be, you didn't really know what it actually was, but you wanted something outside of your environment.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Yes. Because you got to think, there's not a lot of people that's like they're thinking about it, but they're not really taking like real action on getting out of that situation. It sounds like a hopeful dream, and it would sound cool to leave, but for the most part, it's just like their soul is stuck there. You know what I mean? So
I never doubted it though. Although there was nobody around me who was talking about dreams and getting out, I never doubted it, and I never talked to anybody about it. And I think that was something in itself, because depending on who you communicate things to, like, that'll never happen. And I never thought about it, but I never talked to anybody about it. I just used to think it all the time. And remember, Darryl, I was an artist and I was a rapper. and believe it or not, in art, when drawing pictures or writing music, you get a chance to fantasize, because a lot of things that you're writing about haven't happened, or it may have happened, but you have the ability I think that as a rapper or a singer, you're writing what's happening, but you're also writing about what you want to happen. So it gives you the ability to fantasize. And I think that helped me a lot too, because I used to write about what I was going through and what I wanted. So that gave me the ability to dream. I think your artistic side allowed you to have vision and creativity and fantasize. And I think that helped me.
Do you think that any and everybody is artistic in some way, shape, or form?
Yes, I really do. Just the mere fact that with kids, when kids are born into this world, you can see their creativity. They could pick up anything, like you, right? You used to pick up. Now, Darryl would never play with his toys. Darryl would pick up 2 spoons and pull the pots out of under the sink and start banging on it, and just start banging on pots and pans. Now, we never stopped them. We like, this kid bang on everything. He would take some pencils and bang on stuff, right? You would do that. And then you ended up playing drums when you got older. So that creativity, or kids would be like, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor. I want to be a teacher. We all have it. But something happens where somebody begins to kind of speak negatively into our lives where we feel like we can't. But I think everybody has a creative side. Everybody's a dreamer. But we have dream killers at the same time when they get a certain age and they just think these things aren't possible. But everybody has it.
Nah, we're like for me, you already know firsthand, that was very well the case with me playing basketball. And it's something that I mention all the time on this podcast, like all the time. But it was something that I fought tooth and nail for every step of the way. Even though, everybody and their mom told me, like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? You're only getting older. Time is running out. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like, I literally heard it all. But something in me just kept listening to myself, because it felt like that was literally the right thing to do. Even though on the outside world, it was just seeming like I was making the wrong decision with following my dreams. But it's just weird how life comes full circle, and if you keep going, things play out so weird. But for example, for me, that I started realizing that it had a lot to do with the limited beliefs that I had from the past that I was hanging on to, and then keep expecting that things would be different. But I strongly believed that I was going to fail, and when it was all said and done, no matter how hard I worked. And it kept happening until I started thinking, like, why am I even thinking like that? What's making me even think like that? And then once I started becoming self-aware of that, it just like something in my brain switched. And then after that, the outside world literally switched as well. And it started to show me that it was in my favor. For if that makes sense to y'all, at this point, y'all should know how weird I talk. But yeah, it's like the world was like rooting for me, and so many great things like started to happen, especially like this year. This year was a crazy year for me. And like me even like being here doing this podcast with my mom, like it's ridiculous. It's not something that I planned on doing. All of this stuff just started happening. And if you guys listen to, two podcasts ago when I was just talking about your muse, this was just me just showing up and then listening to that thing. But just to even backtrack all the way again, I wanted to ask you, like, pretty much like how did your mindset like switch once you had me and Devontae?
So I like to tell everybody, and I tell Daryl and Devontae, I try to be as transparent as I could possibly be, that prior to having Daryl, I just needed a couple of dollars in my pocket. So when I got pregnant with Daryl, I was working at White Castle, and as long as I had a couple of dollars to do what I had to do, and people was like, "Dad, you keep a job," and the job had medical benefits. I'm just like, I was good. And when I got pregnant with Daryl, I began to think, I was like, I'm about to be responsible for another human, and so I'm like, there's no way my son is going to have the challenges that I faced. I want to make sure he has a house. I want to make sure he has a good education, that he's in a great neighborhood, and if there's anything he needs, I need to make sure that I have the ability to provide. So that's when I'm like, no more hanging out and partying and all it. Like, I need to start a family. And well, a family only consists of the kids in my mind. Unfortunately, I still had a little bit of that in me. So I just wanted the kids. So, but I was like, I got to make sure that my kids have a house and I have a good job. And I remember talking to one of my friends. I was like, I want to get 2 jobs making $100,000 a year. And he was like, why don't you get 1 job making $100,000 a year? And I'm like, who has one job making $100,000? He said, a lot of my female friends. And once he planted the seed that there were other females making $100,000, I said, I'm gonna get a job making $100,000 a year. But just seeing you guys, or seeing you, just being pregnant with you, I was like, there's no way. And once I determined in my mind that there was no way you were gonna live that life, I signed up. After I had you, I signed up for college, Essex County College. Signed up. And I tell people that's where I learned that I was like functionally illiterate, that I didn't even know the basics of reading and writing, and it messed with my ego because I had all A's and B's in high school, and I looked at my report card and it turns out I was in basic skills the whole time, but there was nobody to guide me. But seeing that I was on the lowest level, 066 and 076 classes, it didn't matter because I just told myself it doesn't matter. For my son, I'm going to get this education. And I was like, I took every basic skills class and ended up graduating from there. And I had Devontae at that point. But that didn't matter. What mattered to me is that I was going to provide the life for you guys. So having to start from the bottom, I saw the house, I saw vacations. I saw the bank account. I saw you guys making sure you guys had food. I saw it, and I could not stop until those things happened. And it was all because I found out that I was pregnant with you.
Now, let me tell you guys, it was straight persistence because, you know, you always set out the plan, but that doesn't mean tomorrow that plan is going to happen and it's going to start working out. Mm-hmm. She literally fought tooth and nail for her to get where she at right now, and it took a long time. And not only that, I literally gave this woman the hardest time of all time. Man. For a long time. Probably up until, like, I don't know, 4 years ago. I'm keep it real with you guys. Yeah. I ain't even gonna lie. Yeah. Like I talked to you guys a little bit about me, like, growing up and everything, but when I say I was rebellious to the umpteenth degree.
He was rebellious out the womb. I tell Daryl, I never seen a kid cry. Why? And I used to look back and I used to ask his dad, why is this kid crying like that? I didn't know that I was in for something. But Daryl, I used to beg Daryl. I'm like, Daryl, please, like, if you do good, you know, good things are gonna happen. And I used to beg Daryl. This kid, oh my! But guess what? That moment you can't, because he kept getting in trouble in school and he needed a teacher's aide because he was in class and they can't find him because somehow Daryl maneuvered out the class, and so they needed to have somebody follow him around. He's in the 2nd grade on the 8th grade level, and he said he was bored. So I'm like, Daryl, listen, like, you're so smart and but that didn't matter to him. He determined in his mind that I don't care. I'm not even gonna be good.
Yeah,
it was rough. So, but I remember when Daryl was in 5th grade.
It was the 4th, I think.
Grade. Okay, I keep saying the 5th. 4th or 5th grade, he came to me and he was like, Mom, I don't need an aide anymore. I'm good. This is embarrassing. I promise you I'll be good. And I'm like, you sure? But I trusted him, right? I always trusted you.
Yeah.
And y'all went to the new school.
Yeah, it was GW.
And no more aid, right? And you probably had issue, but not like it was before. It was tolerable for the teachers, which made it tolerable for me. But when you came to me, I said, you sure? And you said, yes, I'm good now. And
yeah, so like all throughout school, even up until I guess my 12th grade year, I literally got in trouble like every single year, all the time. But that transition from, I guess, the 4th, 5th grade was like, you know, it was like less trouble there. I wasn't like, you know what I mean? I literally, she came in, listen, old school. She came into class a couple times to, you know, give me the old fashioned in front of everybody. You know what I mean?
Let me tell you something. It wasn't nothing nice about me, but Daryl wasn't scared. Daryl gave me a run for my money. Oh my goodness, my kids knew I wasn't gonna play because I just wanted the best for you guys. But discipline, and I'm not talking in the area of corporal punishment. I'm talking discipline of the mind and action. I knew the importance of it, and I needed you to understand that in order to be successful, you have to have self-control. And I said, Daryl, you know, if Daryl can talk about it, at Beth Israel Hospital, Daryl had to get picked up for crisis every day from school so they can talk to him about his issues. But I remember they had him in his room, and he just throwing himself up against the wall, a padded room. And I'm like, get my son out of there, you know. But I said, Daryl, listen, you're not crazy. Stop making people believe that. You remember I said that?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you. Stop it. Daryl, come on, just stop it. And the doctor wanted me to give you Ritalin. I said, how about you give your kids, because she didn't have any. I said, you have kids? She said, no. So when you have them, give it to him. This boy, okay, he needs to just get it together. And I took you out of there, and I never took you back. But and used to antagonize Jasmine and get her started. But this other little girl who was Daryl's sidekick until they put her on medication. But I told Daryl, I said, Daryl, you're not crazy. And I knew he wasn't crazy. I just knew he was just having a moment. And I said, Daryl, stop it. You're fine.
It's like when you're a kid, I guess, and you're dealing with like a lot of like intense emotions, like, you know, anger, sadness for some odd reason, and you don't really know why. You know what I mean? And you go to school with those vibes. I really, like, I'm not even gonna lie, I did go to school, and for the most part, I really didn't care. I literally didn't care. But I didn't know what was going on, and while I was like feeling like that, even when I was at crisis prevention, I would have to like leave school early and go to crisis prevention, and then after that, from crisis prevention, they'd take us home. But I didn't necessarily know how to like handle those emotions, and it literally took me a long time. And for the most part, everybody always say, like, at this point, that just now starting to meet me and everything, that they be like, you're like the nicest person in the world. You're
Exactly.
so, but
Exactly.
I always tell them that I wasn't always like this. You know, that a lot of this stuff is like new to me. You know what I mean?
And as you're talking, you know what happened? It was separation anxiety. Because you had such a tight relationship with your dad. You didn't have any of those issues prior to the separation. And it was separation anxiety, and we couldn't. I used to tell the doctors, he just misses dad. You just missed him, and you didn't know how to deal with it because you weren't like that at all prior to.
Yo, shout out to my pops. If you watching this, man.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for real. Love you, dog.
I mean, if I had to be real, they were with their dad way more than they were with me. I was.
Oh, she was. My mom was the queen at just dropping us off, or with any and everybody.
Yeah.
And then after that, she's gone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But for me and Devontae, my little brother that's like right under me, we grew up together, but through that we became extremely. These taught us like tools of being observant of what's going on around us. You know, even though like yeah, facts.
But Daryl, I mean, if we got to put everything out there, they know that I was going to school full time, I was working full time, but I didn't understand the importance of like that relationship, because to me, I set out to have a goal, to have a career in order to give you guys a life, not knowing what was going on with y'all being babysitted by people. I used to beg people, please can you watch them so I could go to work, or please can you watch them so I can go to school. And I took you guys to school with me a couple times because I couldn't find a babysitter. But my goal was to just get this career going and get my education out of the way so that you guys can have a better life. And as they got older and they started telling me the stories of what was happening, I was like, oh my. But they refused to tell me because they felt like I was working on something.
Yeah, and also she was a snitch. She'll throw us under the bus quick all the time.
Oh.
See, yeah, so what's the point? You feel me? When you a 10-year-old or 11-year-old, your opinion don't matter to adults. It just a matter to the adult that was watching you.
Well, Daryl, you know that I was a bit aggressive, so y'all tell me something is on. And we need to get to the bottom of this thing. So.
Oh my God! Speaking of that, you gotta tell the people about the pickle jar story.
Yeah, maybe we won't do that. Maybe we'll do that in 5 or 6 years.
All right. Oh yeah, we're gonna keep the pickle jar story under wraps.
I was just a little aggressive back then. I was a little aggressive.
But when you came to the point where you decided that you was going to join the state police, how challenging was that transition?
Well, you know, I had served in the Army National Guard for 12 years, and I was like, I was already working out. I was going to the gym all the time, and so I'm like, it's the same military structure. This is going to be awesome. But transitioning, it was different culturally. I didn't know how to swim. That was the biggest challenge.
The biggest challenge.
And the biggest challenge is just not understanding the culture of where you're trying to go. Majority of my life in jobs was spent around African Americans, people that look like me. And then I went to an academy where I was just like the only black female. Then I'm the only black female that showed up with the wrong uniforms. Then I'm the only black female who can't swim. So I'm the only one there.
Oh, Jesus Christ!
I'm the only one there who's a single parent. So I'm training and still thinking about from week to week if you guys had somebody to watch off from week to week. I went the day before the academy. I did not even know if I had a babysitter, and your dad knocked on the door that night and was like, I'll take him. But up until that day, I did not know who was going to watch you guys. So even when I was working and going to school, from day to day, I'm trying to find a babysitter. Even from week to week, I'm trying to make sure there was somebody to watch you guys. But I said, it's going to happen. I don't care. It's going to happen. But
that's so stressful.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Every day I'm trying to find. Daryl, you knew when it was time for me to go to work, I'm calling somebody. Please, I give you $50 to watch them today. Please, I give you whatever you need just to watch them today. And
oh, man, those would be the mornings we got to wake up real early.
Catching the bus, 3 buses to get somewhere to drop you guys off. And I'm calling everybody just so I can make sure I'm paying the bills. So going to the academy was stressful because you guys were young, and I just had so many challenges because I just did not know what this environment was like. I'm joining law enforcement. Like, you know, I never considered law enforcement. I wanted to be a psychiatrist, and now I'm jumping into this, and now I'm learning how to be a police officer. That was just different. Like, it was just strange because never did I think about being a law enforcement officer because of what I grew up in watching with law enforcement. So it was just a shock.
When people always ask me about, you know, you being a state trooper, a police officer, I literally always tell them like she's a mom before she's a state trooper,
exactly.
And that's how she's a great state trooper.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
And I believe that the fundamental principles that you learned from being a mom and being a nurturer, a caregiver, being empathetic and looking out for someone outside of yourself is all great characteristics in order to be someone that looks over a community or, you know, the state in general. You know what I mean? And I tell them that all the time. You know, because that's personally, you know, why I believe what led you to that. Yeah. You know what I mean? Is weirdly enough, even though you had to even go through all those obstacles, it was like waiting for you for some odd reason. And even with the fact, like, for example, that you couldn't swim, you got to tell a story of how you even learned how to swim while you was even during the academy. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah, so the first week I went to the academy, we had to jump in the pool. And all my classmates were in the pool, and I'm like, yeah, that ain't happening. I'm standing at the edge like, I'm not getting in there because I saw 14 and a half feet on the floor. And I'm like, considering my height, and that's not about to happen. And they're like, get in. I'm like, yeah, no. Because I had never been in a pool a day in my life. And they would scream, get in. I eventually jumped in and jumped out, and I was like, yeah, that's not happening again. That was the scariest moment of my life. And they told me, they said, think about if you should be here. Like, I don't think this is the place for you. And they told me to think about it. And for a split second, I thought about it. I said, yeah, I'm supposed to be here. So that weekend, you know, I picked you guys up from your dad that Friday night. And I said, tomorrow we're going to learn how to swim. And you guys are like, yeah, we're going to the pool, right? I'm like, it's not that serious. So we went to JFK the next day. And I talked to and this is what I love about Newark when I talk about that sense of community. I talked to the lifeguards, and I'm like, listen, I'm in the State Police Academy. I need to learn how to swim. And they was like, we got you. And you guys are already, I don't know how long we were there before you guys were already jumping off the diving board into the daggone 14 and a half feet. And then the lifeguards was like, you need to jump off that diving board. And I'm like, I am not getting up there. They're like, listen, to overcome your fear, when you jump down, the water going to automatically push you up. And I am a nervous wreck. I don't know if you remember watching me, but I walked up those stairs and I walked to the edge, and I was like, they're not going to let me drown. And I just jumped in. And I came up and was fighting to get to the side, and I did it again. But I still couldn't swim. And so they worked with me, still couldn't swim. So I went through the academy for like 15 weeks, and they gave me 1 day to pass. They said, if you don't pass on Monday, we're dismissing you. That was the only thing I had failed. And so we went back to JFK, and I'm in the 3 feet with the babies, and Darren and Devontae are in the 14 still jumping off the diving board, and they're loving the pool. And so I'm in the 3 feet with the babies, and I'm trying to swim, and I'm swimming with my eyes closed, and there was a guy in the middle of the pool, in the baby pool. And I'm like, you better stop looking at me, because here I am thinking he checking me out, and I'm trying to swim. And he said, why are you swimming like that? I'm like, swimming like that? Swimming like what? He said, you keep swimming with your eyes closed. You keep bumping into the wall every time you open up your eyes. Because I'm like this, not realizing my body was turning, and I kept hitting the wall. So he said, listen. I said, listen, tomorrow I have to take the state police swim test. And if I don't pass it tomorrow, I'm getting dismissed. He said, you're going to pass that swim test. So he taught me in that short period of time, after 15 weeks, just focus on your hands. Don't focus on the depth. Just focus on your hands. And he told me how to, the whole time I just want you to focus on your hands. Don't focus on breathing, nothing. And so he worked with me for probably like 2 hours or 3 hours. And I went to the academy the next morning, and the instructors were like, yeah, today's your day. So I fasted and I prayed. And I said, God, if it's your will, I'll pass. If not, you got something more for me. We went to the pool. We worked out for like an hour and a half. The recruits got back on the bus. I had to stay. They set up the video cameras around the pool. I had to jump in. Now, I had to swim a full lap, which I had never done in 15 weeks, and I had to tread water for 5 minutes. Tread water. The most I've ever been able to tread water was maybe 2 minutes. I said, it's all or nothing. And I jumped in.
Oh, God.
And I focused on my hands. I didn't focus on kicking, breathing. I made it down to the end, came back, touched the wall. They said, now you have to tread water for 5 minutes. I felt like the hand of God had lifted me all the way down there and all the way back. I felt like I never got wet. When I came back, I had to tread water, and I just focused on the light in the ceiling. It was like this bright light, and I just focused. And they were like, get out of the pool. Get out of the pool. I'm like, what the heck? Alligator in here? So I jumped. I started swallowing water, everything. It was, and first of all,
and then she instantly lost her powers after that.
I did. I was like, oh my God. And I'm trying to get to the wall and everything. And they said, you passed. They was like, how come you wasn't swimming like that the whole time? I was like, it was God, sir. Shut up and go get changed, you know? But right after I graduated, I called myself taking Darren and Devontae to the Poconos. I was like,
yeah,
we about to go to the Poconos because I could swim. So they got their swim trunks on. I got my bathing suit, and we're in the water, and then I'm swimming, and I close my eyes again, and I'm like fighting, like, oh my God, and I would not open my eyes. And Devontae jumped out of the pool. He was like, Mommy, grab my hand. I didn't open my eyes, and Daryl cracking up in the water, just laughing at me. And he is laughing, and I can't believe it. I can't see him, and I can't say anything. Right now I'm trying to save myself. Devontae like, Mommy, please, just open your eyes. I opened my eyes. The wall was like literally right there, and I just stood up. That was just ridiculous. But
people, if she would have planted her feet on the ground, the water would have been at her waist.
Yeah. I put my feet down and just stood
Y'all
up.
remember when Patrick caught a cramp in the Goo Lagoon and his butt cheek twisted up?
Oh my God.
Yeah, that was her.
Daryl thought that was the funniest thing Daryl ever. He a kid and he is cracking up. So I knew at that point who loved me more. It was definitely Devontae. Because he got out, Mommy, grab my hand, and you just was cracking up.
Fast forward 15 years.
Evil. But that was my story. But I just wasn't going to give up. No matter how afraid I was of drowning, I just kept jumping in. Every time we had a session, I just kept jumping in and doing what I could.
And you said that you were the only black female there.
Mm-hmm. And I was the only one who didn't pass the swim test to the last day. Everybody else had passed several weeks prior. It was just me.
You talk about pressure.
Yeah.
Makes diamonds.
Yeah. I was determined.
I
said, I'm going to be a trooper. I just kept saying, I'm going to be a New Jersey State Trooper. Whatever they tell me to do, I'm going to do. And that's what I did.
How much would you say that you learned from being a state trooper?
The beneficial thing about being there is when I got there, I just saw people who were like goal oriented. They're like, I took this training, I signed up for this marathon, I got this degree, I got a master's degree, I got a JD. I was an engineer before I came here. I was pre-med. I'm like, what? And I came there with an associate's degree. And I just, they're like, I have this house and I can provide this for my family, and I'm the softball coach for my daughter's. They were just doing everything positive, and I'm like, and after that, like Darryl, when I used to take you guys over to their houses, I'm like, we were still living in an apartment when I was doing that, and I said, no, I want my kids to have this kind of freedom, and and this kind of love and support and safety. And then just seeing how they were, I was like, God, you created them just like you created me. I can do this. Learning about investments and everything, and it was like game on. It was, and Daryl, I went back and I got the bachelor's. I was intimidated about learning, but I went and got the bachelor's, then the master's, then the PhD, and I'm like, I want to open up my business, and I want to, I want to own a house, and I want to be a college professor, and I became a college professor. Like, just being in that environment was so motivating. I was like, man, these people they're amazing, and I was so optimistic that I looked around at everything positive, and it just benefited me to this day. So working there has been amazing, and then getting a chance to interact with the public. You know how much I love the public. You know how much I love to help and talk about the importance of goals and talking about my journey, and just being able to connect, and people knowing I'm from Newark and my background. I've been able to motivate so many people, even some of your friends who have reached out and like, I look up to you. And
no, like, I'm not even gonna lie, like, you don't understand, like, even as of late, like, you became like a huge inspiration for me, because you literally don't sit still.
I know.
And then after that, for example, if I'm chilling and I'm not doing nothing, it's just like, what?
Yeah, you said that to me.
I did.
You said that.
But now it's like it's actually getting kind of weird, if you ask me, because it's like I'm weirdly enough turning into like a little you.
Yeah, you are. I tell everybody, I'm like, you're my twin. I try to keep up with the show that I do, Discovering Your Gold Mind, and when I tell people when I'm doing the show, I'm like, I learned so much from my son. Like, you taught me the butterfly effect. You teach me so much about the books. You're like, Mom, you ever heard of this? And I'm like, Daryl, how do you even remember the authors? How do you remember, like, these terms? And he always, to me, you're like always 10 steps ahead of me. And I'm like, this kid is amazing. And you read, so Daryl and I and Devontae, we question everything now. Our biggest thing is, what is truth? Because truth is what you make it at this point. Because as humans, we don't know. We just gravitate to what we believe, and we connect to that. I believe what I see and what makes me feel good, and I be like, that's the truth. And you and I and Devontae, we always say, well, what makes that true? We have heated debates here all the time. It's either Daryl and I agree, or Daryl and Devontae agree, but
somebody's getting jumped.
Yeah, it's rare that me and Devontae agree. But for the most part,
yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. Yeah, I'm the mediator. Yeah, I'm the person that picks sides. So I guess I'm the person that's doing the jumping.
Yeah, because me and Devontae, we just if he was here, it'd be on. But I'll just need to adjust the mic, so I'm listening. I'm adjusting the headphones. I'm listening to you.
All right, but it's been a weird journey. Because I think with how different our minds, all three of us, like, actually think, the concepts that's been able to even, like, cook up, and even the things that you guys, like, I guess the ideas that you threw me, that, that I'm just like, what in the world? That's kind of out there, but that kind of makes sense. You know what I mean? It's very, very weird. It's all weird dynamics that seem like they coincide with each other.
Yeah, you and I said, Daryl, if we were having this conversation with somebody, they'd be like, what are you guys talking about? Because it seems like it's just out of this world. Yeah. It's a higher level of education, and we take it from the foundation of what we're reading and what we feel, but we are constantly increasing our knowledge. Like, and I'm like, you say something, I'd be like, and then I say something to you, you be like, that's right. But if somebody was on the outside looking in, they'd be like, what are they talking about?
What is going on? Y'all not making any sense.
And we like, see? And that's what if you don't think it makes sense, then you have to really educate yourself.
But that's ultimately why I even started this podcast. I felt as though, weirdly enough, it was starting to get more and more urgent and important for me to get some of these thoughts outside of my head. Mm-hmm. But not only that, but even give insight to people on how I think. And what I believe, like this world that we actually living in, because I don't know it all, and we all figuring all of this stuff out together.
For real.
But you got certain people that do think like this. You know what I mean? Yeah. And they like conversations like this. So to actually like sit here and like listen to this, people love it. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel as though the conversations, like, it increases your mind capacity for some odd reason. You know what I mean? This is something that I always tell you all the time. Mm-hmm. Like again on this podcast, I'm gonna say it again. I'm a broken record, but this is something that I mentioned on this podcast as well. When you just got two minds that come together, it automatically creates a third. Yeah. Three minds automatically creates four. That's just how it works. Yeah. You know what I mean? But the one thing that I'm learning with that is when those minds they have to be cohesive. They gotta be vibrating at the same vibration in order for that third mind to get created. So, like, for example, if I'm feeling some way and you feel the exact opposite way of how I'm feeling, that's not going to create a third mind. Mm-mm. That's one. Yeah. But you got two people talking. Right. How crazy is that? Yeah. But when it's cohesive, it's three.
How could people get to understand that? Like, what do you mean three minds? Like, how do you get people to connect to that?
It's, to me, everything always starts first off in the realm of thought, and then after that it manifests itself.
It does. Exactly.
So, for example, me and you could be talking, right? And out of nowhere, some brilliant idea comes about that it wouldn't have happened if we didn't have a conversation.
And that can only happen. It's all generated by emotions too, because if it's a negative conversation, there's no way you could tap into that higher rim. It's impossible to tap into the highest rim of thought and creativity with negative thoughts. But when you're open to learning and you're open to transferring knowledge and allowing that thought process to engage your brain and the subconscious part of it and connecting to things that you already know, that's where real things happen. But you can't do that with a negative mindset. So if I was to talk to somebody and they're like, that ain't true, you can't change your mind, and you can't just think of something at that point, that it's impossible to operate at optimum levels and to connect with somebody on a higher level, because you just shut it down and you're operating from the primitive part of your brain. So negative emotions cause you to operate from the past, the most primitive side of who we are. But when you are having a thought-provoking conversation and you're allowing, like, your prefrontal cortex or the frontal part of how you think to operate, so that which allows you to be in the moment, that's when you can have that higher transcend into another rim in thinking, which allows you to be creative and accept that everything isn't the same and things are subject to change, and whatever you know, just note that there can be more. It allows you to believe that there's more and more. But when you have a negative mindset, it's a fixed mindset. You believe that this is all it is, and it doesn't allow you to really maximize the human brain and what we can really, really do with it. And Daryl, you and I talk about it. We haven't even tapped all the way into this thing. We haven't even tapped into this brain yet. Even with the way you and I communicate, we still have not tapped into the power of what we can see and feel, especially when you talk about purpose.
I say this all the time. Well, as of recently, back to the broken record. But I told you this, but it's crazy how I personally believe that we can't really tap into that. Like, for example, like I told you that, like, it's a lot of words, like there's certain words that can explain what you're thinking about and how you're feeling. Mm-hmm. There's no words that's been created for it. So to me, that just shows the huge disparity between our language and how we think, and what's the capabilities in our heads that if we able was to, like, make a language to that can help other people understand, and not only that, take some different type of outside action.
So you're saying that the words that we have in our mind and our limited vocabulary doesn't allow us to really tap into that higher being, because we're trying to put a label or a word on something, and that word could only connect to the limited information that it could never take you higher, because you're connecting it to a word, which connects it to a thing, and it connects it to an experience, which connects it to the past, which means you can't go higher because that word is compartmentalized.
Exactly. So
see how we do? You see how we do? You see how we do?
Boom.
Yes.
Boom. You just witnessed it.
Exactly. Power. Come on.
But nah, like seriously, like even with what you just said, the things that we saying right now, we got to find a way to present it for not only for you to understand, but also for everybody else that's listening.
Come on.
You know what I mean? And it's automatically going to put that thing in a box. You know what I mean? Which means it's going to get put into another box, which you're not really fully expressing. It's only a limited version. No matter what you say, it's only kind of like a limited version.
Right.
Like, for example, when you hear somebody talk and they really talking with passion, somebody else could say those same exact words, but it's not the same thing. You know what I mean? But it's something in those words. You know what I mean? And if you look deeper than those words, and then after that you look in the emotion that's going into it, which that plays into the experience of this person even saying these words, that the way that they're saying it is so weird to me. Like the emotions, the thoughts, and everything that, you know what I mean, that you can't even put it into words. Like, you know, like for example, there's no word for somebody, I guess, and it probably is, for like mad and sad at the same time. It's possible. You know what I mean? It's like it's so weird. Even with that, you are like the emotional intelligence GOAT.
Yes.
So
yes.
Explain to people what emotional intelligence is for those like that don't know what it means.
So emotional intelligence has a lot to do with how you respond to yourself and how you respond to people. It's that innate characteristic. So it has a lot to do with self-control, relationship building, social control, and self-management. So we got social control, self-management, relationship building, and I said another one. I apologize. But it has a lot to do with your ego. It has a lot to do with your innate characteristics, your morals, your creativity, your energy level, your optimism. And it's what emotions is energy and motion, because we are a ball of energy. So it's how you connect to it's how you connect to the world within you and the world outside of you. So I always say, you don't see the world as it is, you see the world as you are. And emotional intelligence it's a predictor of success. So when you can show up emotionally stable and positive, not saying that negative things are not going to happen to you, but how do you respond to those what we consider negative things in our life? Like if you failed something, do you hold on to that and never try again? Or is your emotional intelligence so high that with those emotions and you realize that you failed something and you got a setback, do you look and say, okay, this is how I make the adjustment? Emotional intelligence allows you to make that adjustment because you're connecting. It's a feeling, right, that you don't like, but how can I turn it into something that I do like? So if you have fear, how could I overcome that fear? My level of emotional intelligence was I had fear, but I'm going to jump in because I know that I'm not going to drown. Fear was present, but I was so high on emotional intelligence because my optimism about success and my desire to be successful and how I saw myself, I knew that I was going to be successful. My emotional intelligence was so high that I jumped in even under fear, and I was able to do what I had to do because emotionally I knew that nothing wasn't going to happen to me, and I knew that I was going to be successful. When people operate in fear, some people, it becomes a state of paralysis where they can't move, they can't think, they can't do anything, and that's a lower level of emotional intelligence. It means that you don't know how to respond in a positive way to overcome an obstacle. That's basically what it comes out to.
So I'm gonna ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
So you was just talking about fear just now.
Uh-huh.
What is the opposite of fear?
Faith. What do you say?
The same exact thing.
Yes.
So talk a little bit to people about faith. And if you have any like tips or like tricks to like cultivate somebody's faith and build it up, or say if they don't even have none and they're still strongly in like a fear-based mindset.
Faith has a lot to do with your belief system. So you can have, even in faith, you can have fear, because you got a fear that will never happen. So you're using faith in the wrong way. But faith has a lot to do with belief, that you have hope for something, and the Bible says it, hope for something that's not seen, but you have faith that thing, you just believe that thing will happen. So faith allows you to just take at least one step at a time, right? Even when you decided to do this, you have faith that it would succeed. So you just started one step at a time. You didn't know how big it was going to get, and you still have faith that it's going to get bigger, but you don't know at what point it's going to be as big as your imagination will allow. Faith allows you to take that step. So what I would challenge people to do to overcome fear, I believe in journaling, and you are the journal king. You are the journal king. I believe in journaling. So if you have fear in any area, I say write down your thoughts and challenge those fears. Say, this is what I fear. And then say, this is what it is. Then ask yourself the question, why do I fear it? Your brain is going to say you fear it because of this. We have to understand that our brain will always give us the answers if we ask the questions. Why do we fear? How can I overcome it? Your brain is going to say you can overcome it this way. When shall I start? Your brain going to say, let's start now. Why shall I start it? Because this is something that I want to accomplish, and this is something that I want to overcome. So you want to do the who, what, when, where, why, and how. Who started this? Who planted this seed? Begin to trace the thought to where the fear came from. Why did I have a fear of drowning? I've never drowned, but I had heard a story that I had an uncle that drowned in the water before I was born. So I always thought about somebody drowning in water, so I had a fear of drowning. It had never happened to me, but I had to determine in my mind it's not going to happen because there's people here that's going to get me out the bottom of the water. So I just jumped in. My brain said, okay, if you say you're not going to drown, you're not going to drown. Your brain is going to respond to you, whatever you give it. Now, we listen to Earl Nightingale, right? Earl Nightingale said that the brain is like the ground when you plant a seed. It does not care what you plant in it. It's going to yield to you what you give it. So if you have a fear and you're like, I'm not going to succeed, the brain is only going to yield to you that you're not going to succeed. But if you say, I may not be succeeding at the pace that I want to now, but it will happen, because you planted that seed, the brain is going to say, well, it may not be happening for me now, but it will happen. Okay, I'm going to do it today. Okay, then I'm going to do it today. And another thing I wanted to add is similar to your workout regimen, right? You're like, I'm getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to the gym. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to play basketball for an hour. I'm going to lift for an hour. And every morning I hear you go out that door and I hear you drive off.
I'm not even going to lie. I've been a savage as of late. Like, even with today, I'm not even going to lie. I had practice in Delaware last night, and I got home like around 11:15, and I ate, and I went to sleep a little after 12, and the gym opened up at 5 a.m. this morning. So I was like, I gotta be there. I gotta be one of the first people to get there. So I woke up at like 4:15, 4:30, and I made sure I was at the gym at 5 o'clock. And for me, I tell people this all the time. It don't feel like I'm pushing myself to do it. It's something that, God honest truth, I genuinely want to do. And I'm really big on following what my inspiration is telling me. So when I naturally even wake up around that time without even like an alarm clock, I'm not going to fight whatever it is that told me to get up.
And you know why that's happening?
Why?
Because you started journaling about 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
You started journaling what you wanted. And then, which book was it? Where it told us to...
The one thing.
The one thing. Oh, my goodness. If you have to get anything, and it depends on who you are, but you get that one thing. But you had to journal what you're going to do from day to day, week to week, then month to month, then a year. and you started journaling, and you will write that thing 100 times. And when you wrote that thing 100 times, your brain said, okay, this is what you want. This is what you said you're going to do. And I started with my vision board. I wrote my vision board, and I wrote the date. This is when I'm going to start. And you know me with working out. You know, if I get up in the morning, I ain't work out, you know I'm going at some point. I don't care if it's at 6, 7 o'clock, because I tell myself,
for real, facts.
Tomorrow I'm going to do this and then that and this. I don't care what order it's going to happen, but I make sure I get everything done that needs to be done, because I program my brain to say, this is what I'm going to do. So you have to, I tell people, don't go through the day, create the day. When you create your day, that's when things happen. If you don't write things down, then you'll say, I got so much to do today, and you'll be lucky to get one thing done, because it's not structured. But when you write those things down and say, I'm going to do this at this time, that time, and after a while, guess what? It's going to become second nature. Then it's going to get to the point where you don't have to write it down. But you have to do that in the beginning to train yourself to be disciplined. Deliberate practice. You introduced me to that. Deliberate practice. You have to be focused. You have to be determined, right? But discipline is key. Discipline is key.
Discipline is literally the deciding factor if you're going to fail or succeed.
Yes.
And for me, I had to hone in on a lot of different things, because 5 years ago when I started journaling, I only started journaling because I reached rock bottom, and I had to find a way to literally climb out of the hole that I dug for myself. Mm-hmm. And I was so upset at myself. I was so upset at the circumstances that I was in, and I genuinely didn't know what to do about it. So what I started doing was I started writing down like pretty much a to-do list for myself for like 5, 6, 7 things, whether it was like work, play basketball, read for an hour, and then after that it started turning into affirmations, where I was just like, I am a millionaire, I play overseas basketball, I'm a professional athlete. But all of this stuff was not the case at the time. It didn't happen. And I was doing this like every day, but then a lot of times I would just get real depressed, because I look around and I'm looking at the paper and I'm just like, this stuff it's not happening. But fast forward 5 years later, you know what I mean? And I got the opportunity to play overseas. I got the opportunity to do a decent amount of stuff that I wrote down in my journal, and it gives me like the chills to look at it sometimes and just like, dag, like I can't believe I did this stuff. And even looking at the stuff that's to come that I even wrote down, it's just like, wow, like in my head now it's so weird. It's like it already happened. That's the only thing that I'm thinking about. You know what I mean? It's just like I'm not thinking about getting to that destination. Yeah. It's like I'm already there. So the biggest thing that I started like telling people, and especially on this podcast, for those of you listening, this is most importantly for you guys, but I always say, create the destination first and not last, and then you create the consistency behavior second, and that's going to get you to step one. You always got to work your way backwards.
It's similar, and I would bring God into it, the way creation was made. You know, he thought it, then he spoke it, and then it happened. And everything starts from a thought. Everything starts from a thought. We think it, we speak it, and then we do it. But you have to believe. If you don't believe that it could happen, your brain can... When you talk about emotional intelligence, if you say, I'm going to be a millionaire, and your brain is like, yeah, you only got like $10, right? And you're like, yeah, I only got 10. And you're like, yeah, I got 10 today, but I'm going to have $1 million, and this is how I'm going to start it. You have to tell your brain, yeah, I have that. Because the most powerful thing, Darryl, that we have is not really what other people say, it's self-talk.
Absolutely.
It's the conversation that we have with ourselves. That's the most powerful thing. Somebody can tell me that I'm not going to be successful all day. And I'm like, whatever. That won't get to me. But the minute I tell myself, you got self-limiting beliefs, that's when you won't be successful. And I tell Darryl, as Darryl showed me his journal continuously. See ma. I wrote it. And I told Daryl, I don't care what anybody say. I know you're going to be successful. And he's already successful. I tell Daryl I'm his biggest fan because I've learned, I watched the transformation, and I know that you believe. I know that you're determined, not because you're my son, it's because I see it in action. And I'm like, I'm a fan. And I tell people, but I am a serious, serious fan.
Nah, that means a lot to me, for real.
I'm a fan because you're reading the books. And the books don't mean nothing, but you search your inner self and you connect it to your purpose. You have found your purpose. And what's even more amazing is that we took two different journeys, but now we have the same goal to help people live on purpose.
Yeah.
You know, I got Discover Your Gold Mind, right? And yours is
Purpose Served.
Discovering Your Gold Mind.
Purpose Served.
Purpose Served. I want them to discover their gold mind. Both of us are trying to get them to look within. We always say that. We're trying to get you to understand that everything that you need is inside of you. Everything is inside of you. There's not a person in the world, Daryl, that doesn't want to be successful. Everybody want to be successful. But the thing is, they are trying to find things and people to help them become successful when they don't realize that success lies within. And I'm not saying, because you and I read books and we search, I'm not saying that you don't find out how people did it. But you have to, they did it that way. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. But the one thing that it does mean is that it can happen.
Right. Nah, I'm like, the biggest thing for me, and I tell you this all the time, because I said this on the very first podcast episode that I did, that I do my research on successful people, and I try to see what their tendencies are. And study it, and then like even with what she just said, and then apply it for myself in a way where I'm not doing what they did, but I'm taking those same principles and then them same mindsets, and I'm applying it for myself. Like the episode when I was talking about a muse, and I was talking about Kobe Bryant as being one of my most major muses. And another thing that I brought up in that episode is the day he passed away, when you called me and checked up on me and see if I was okay. And then I brought up in a podcast, like the talk that I had with you ultimately changed the trajectory of my life, because you said this is all in God's plan, and you don't know how, like, for example, this can bless you. And, you know, she ultimately pretty much just said, like, maybe this is like your chance to start like inspiring people. And that I needed to hear that at that time, because like I lost one of my biggest motivations and inspirations. Well, she already, like, that was somebody that I learned so much from, about being resilient, about being persistent, and not letting like nobody dictate the path that I was destined to go on. And just staying along it and having that, you know, Mamba mentality. And I was like that for so long. And he was part of the root reasons. And plus, like, you know, even bringing up like how rebellious I was. So I always was doing my own thing. But I had the older that I got, I was getting more reckless. But I had to start learning how to channel that energy of being my own and being myself. And through basketball, it helped me figure that out. You know what I mean? And like you already know, like everybody in their mom was just like, you know, basketball is not for you. And I just kept going. Because it felt like it was. And then things just started clicking out of nowhere. But I started changing my inner beliefs, and I started telling myself like, yo, this was destined for me. And that's when, really enough, I didn't have to force my way to find opportunities in anything. Opportunities started coming towards me, and I just had to take it. Like, it's just crazy how things just go any and every all direction, even when you're heading in that direction of the thing that you want most. Like, I told this story as well on the podcast, but the day that I lost my phone, I broke my phone at the airport when I went to Spain. And I I said you asked me one of the most distinct questions that I ever heard in my life. After 45 minutes of trying to see where this phone was at, you looked me square in my eyes and you was like, so what you gonna do? You gonna stay? You gonna go? And I'm just like, dang, she not even gonna help me out with this answer. So I just chucked up the deuces and I turned right around and I'm like, what did I just do? This is possibly the dumbest thing that I've ever did. Everything was on my phone to get there, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to chase this dream real quick. I'm about to leave the country without my phone, and that's exactly what I did. I ended up finding the phone in Spain in the supermarket. For those who's wondering, that phone got destroyed. I left it on top of my mom's car when I got out the car and got my suitcase and everything, and she drove off, and I walked straight inside the airport, and that's how my whole experience started. That was the very first moment. So
just know when he got to Spain, I wasn't playing any games. I was like, listen, tell me who the guy is. I hunted the guy down. My son gonna be at the airport at this time, and he lost his phone, and you need to be there to pick him up. But Daryl, I watched Daryl go up that escalator, and I'm like, I cannot believe that he is going to go to Spain without a phone. I just couldn't believe it.
I was scared.
Believe it, but you did it.
I'm not even gonna lie. It's so many points where I get terrified of some of the stuff that I do, especially going towards my dream, where it's just like, dag, I'm taking a crazy risk right now.
We take risks like when I play Pac-Man and I know I have no business going in that direction and I know that ghost gonna get me. Daryl take risks like that.
Oh man,
my goodness.
The one thing that I learned how to do was take the right risk, you know what I mean, instead of taking any and all risk, you know what I mean.
But Daryl, you think about it, I think the apple just doesn't fall too far from the tree. Like, we want something, we're like, I don't care what anybody say, I'm about to do it, and we just do it. But
that's like that's why I'm saying, like, you play a huge part in that for me, because like I get to watch my muse every day at work. You know what I'm saying?
But what made it full circle is you played a major role in the direction I went in my life, because once I got pregnant with you, I was like, oh no. And that changed my life. You changed my thinking. I said, nope, now this is what I need to do. So, and I tell you that all the time. I say, Daryl, me getting pregnant with you just changed my life. That's the reason why I am where I am today. It's because of you. And you know I tell you that all the time.
On that note, we're going to end the podcast here. Say, nah, I'm just playing. But yeah, we're going to end the podcast here. Tell the people how they can reach you.
You're going to reach me through Daryl, because me and Daryl about to partner. Come on, Daryl, we need to do this together. If you guys agree that we need to partner.
Wow, you just put me on blast,
we
yo.
We need to partner. I think that this would be amazing. While we were communicating, it was like music. It was just one. I just felt the energy, and I'm telling you, I think that
it's something. I'm telling you, it's something about these podcasts that feeling that you got right now. That's been the same feeling I've been having recording all of these podcasts.
No, this is different, Daryl. No,
oh no,
I'm just playing.
Nah, to keep it real though, this one right here. This is by far the most special podcast that I have. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I got my mom on the podcast. I'm literally been begging her to be on this podcast.
We going international. How many times have I told you that? I said, Daryl, you and I are going to share the stage. I tell him that all the time. We're going to share the stage, and we're going to assist people with living on purpose, because I learned so much from you. I could sit back and listen to you all day. I tell him that all day. I could sit back. You are amazing. I'm in awe by your energy. And I know he was about to end it, but when I tell you this kid has done a 180, because 360 means that you turning back to who you were. But Daryl has done a 180. The peace that he brings, he probably told you he left the house for 2 years and he had to go, find himself. We were always in conflict. Like, what you see now as an
like, God honest truth.
We used to be in conflict. Like, but Daryl is like, he's on such a high level regarding his own spirituality and his peace that you won't see it from Daryl. It's a different person, and that's because you're living on purpose. Like, nothing could really, things may get to you, but I don't see it. You are the balance here. You are the balance. And now I actually come to you and talk to you about things. I'm like, hey, Daryl, I just want to
Yeah.
let you know, this is what's going on. Adult to adult.
It's like, I'm not even going to lie. One of the coolest things is that you do come to me and talk to me like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's starting to. I get a couple of weird feelings from that. One of the weird feelings is like, dag, like I'm really getting old. That's one of them. But another thing is just like how much we had to overcome to even get to this point where that we can like just communicate with each other, like, you know what I mean? Because one of the biggest problems that we had in the past was if I was going through anything that I was going through, I felt as though I couldn't come to you for it, and I had to figure it all out by myself.
Yeah.
And that led me to do a lot of stupid stuff, a whole lot of stupid stuff. Yeah. And then it fell back on you, you know what I mean, which ultimately caused all like our back and forths and everything. Yeah. But I was so angry and rebellious that I didn't care. I was just going to do my own thing, you know what I mean, until, you know, I did leave for like 2 years, and then I came back. And it's just been
amazing.
Yeah, pretty much.
It has been amazing. I see Daryl, at times I just look at him and I'm like, I'm so glad you're here. Like, I'm so happy, And it was times I was not happy that Daryl was here, but it was a mess. But I'm so happy. Like, the peace is amazing, and I really thank God for it. So, I think we're gonna do this again.
Most definitely. This platform, the Purpose Served podcast, is literally always open to any time that you want to come on the show. You know what I'm saying? Thank you.
So yeah, maybe I could come on and we could talk about my book. I can do it eventually.
No, we definitely can.
Okay. So if you want to know how to find me, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. Goldmind Consultants, LLC, but it's Goldmind Consultants, and sometimes I do my show on Thursdays. It's called Discovering Your Gold Mind, and in it I talk a lot about the brain and how to transform how you think, again, because you're not who you think you are, but you are what you think. So discover your gold mind. On Facebook, I'm Stacey Goldmind, because I think there's a lot in the name, and I have discovered my gold mind, and Daryl did also. So continue to live on purpose, do what's right, and just trust the process and be intentional, deliberate, have faith, be goal-oriented, be optimistic, and surround yourself around people who would assist you with getting where you want to go. So,
Nice.
Yes.
That was pretty good. Mm. So I'm going to put all her information, as you guys know, in the description below. And I love this lady to death. And for those of you watching, my mother's serving her purpose. Please, you guys, start doing yours. Thank you. I appreciate it. Love y'all.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
Peace. We out. Mic drop. Boom.
Good stuff, man.
Great episode.
Yeah, I think that's going to be amazing.
That's a great episode right there.
I'm glad the thing started working. That was good.
I wasn't going to quit. I was not going to stop.
Well, I got to eat, though. You could talk to me in the kitchen. I'm sorry.